All right, we're live. Cool. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining. My name's Christina. This is my co-host, Maple Cat. And we're going to be doing some combi van reviews today. For those who don't know me, my name's, well, I already said my name. I'm a texture and look development artist. I work at Rising Sun Pictures. RSP is located in Adelaide, Australia. And yeah, predominantly do the textures and look development for 1 second. All right, so bear with me for a minute. I'm testing up a bit of a new setup. But the idea for today is we've already received some amazing entrants for our combi van challenge, and I was hoping to provide a bit of a review. And today I'll just be going through a couple different combi vans. Some of them are finished, and some of them are a work in progress. I'm very aware of that. But I really just wanted to provide a little bit of feedback and just some areas where I feel that you may be able to push it a little bit further. And even if I don't review your combi van, I feel as though you might be able to get something out of this as well. So the first one I'm going to be looking at. Here we go, there I am. I found it just a really striking color combination, actually. And the little designs on the side, and yeah, it really stood out as a thumbnail. So just to start off, I mean, again, I've already said the colors are really, really stunning, but I'm just going to take you through a couple of components of the entry. Now, you can see there's a lot of substance designer happening here. And something that really impressed me, and I think you guys will be just as impressed, is that all these logos and all of these little symbols on the side were created in Substance Designer. So check this out. Above and beyond, really. Absolutely insane. Well done. So, yeah, the logos on the side, the colors, the sunset, and I think they had some really good just concept and ideas as well. I found the overall concept really quite cool. So I thought I'd just go through a couple of different areas where I feel this could be pushed a little bit further. And I will say this is a work in progress, and I'm well aware of that. So hopefully this may help you just to push it a little bit further. So the first thing I like to look at whenever I'm reviewing something, the first thing I like to review is just some technical checks. As a texture artist, we really have to make sure that all of our materials look and feel like the material that we're trying to portray. Hello, Maple. So paint has to feel like paint, glass has to feel like glass. And not only that, we have to make sure that these materials are physically accurate as well. So there's certain diffuse values and certain specular values that we have to abide by to make sure that they look correctly in all the different environments that we may present it in. So the first thing that stood out to me on this particular combi van, now if I just scroll down to here, now this is a bit of a work in progress. The first thing that stood out to me was the darkness of the tires. So this is a quite common thing that comes up in student work, is that whenever we want to create black material or a really dark material, it's a natural instinct to drop the base color right down to 0. Now, this is not physically accurate, and in fact, nothing in this world has a pure black base color. Charcoal has a value of 0.03. So as you can imagine, a black rubber tire would be just a little bit higher than this. So it's hard to tell whether it's the environment or whether the material is too dark, but I would just encourage you just to check on the tires and just double check to make sure that that value is lifted above the 0.03. It looks all right in this environment, but that could be the lighting lifting it up as well. So that goes for any material, and to anyone watching this, just when you create a black material, do make sure you don't drop it below that value. And in the same way, this is not relevant to this particular combi van, but if you have a white value, such as some white paint, don't put it all the way up to 1. It's a very natural thing to do. Again, just I want it to be brighter and brighter. But in actual fact, white paint should really sit between about 0.7 and 0.8 in value. I've sometimes pushed it up to about 0.85 if it's really, really necessary, depending on the lighting conditions, but it's always best to stick it within that PBR range. So just a few little technical checks to keep that in mind. In the same way, metal has a few other rules as well that we must abide by as well. So when we're looking at aluminium or any sort of these metals here, something that sticks out to me is that the specular response, it looks and feels like it's a metal, but it feels a little bit dark at the same time. So my natural instinct is that the base color for this material was dropped quite low. The PBR metallic roughness workflow states that the base color of the metal shouldn't really drop below about 0.7. That's sort of your value that you want. That's the nice value you want to sit at. You can drop it lower. Again, these are not hard rules, but it's sort of like a best practice. I've dropped the base color to about maybe 0.4 before for metals, again, if it's absolutely necessary. But I encourage you just to check in on that metal and make sure that it's not looking too dark. So down here, it does actually, in a previous submission, down here it looks a little bit brighter and it looks a little bit more successful in these renders. So I'm not sure whether it's an environment thing or the color, because I haven't got all of the information to be able to tell that. But that's another thing just to check on that value as well. So tech checks out the way. So a few other things that I'd like to point out as well, which look fantastic. I think that could just be fine-tuned a little bit further. So some of these harsh lines around the edge. So if you take a look, we have some secondary layers around the corners, and also a pretty harsh line around the symbol as well, and around here. It was definitely more prominent in a previous submission. So when working with Substance Painter, it's very, very easy to, I guess, add edge wear and curvature edge wear and things like that. But what sometimes we forget to do is to break that up quite a bit. So some of the smart masks and smart materials do become quite procedural, and they're designed to sort of get you 70% of the way, but you still need to top that up with some hand painted details. And I like to add sort of like broad scale as well as fine scale details as well. So if it was me, I would sort of come in and multiply over like a large fractal pattern, something that would eat away and break up some of this consistency along the edge wear. It's a lot more successful around the doors here. Now it could just be the angle, but definitely I would be just breaking up that a little bit more. And I guess when you have solid lines like that, it does distract from the realism because it gives it a bit of a line-arted feel. Yeah, so that's something I would look into as well. And again, that's for any detail that you have in Substance Painter. Always work towards adding, again, that large scale fractal. So I'll drop down, plain material. I'll get large scale, like a clouds or one of those grunge maps that fills up the whole combi. Multiply that over or overlay that over, and then I'll work towards adding a bit of a finer scale one as well. So shrink it down or add another material and eat away at that sort of hard edge. So that's just one technique that I use. Very well done though. Something else I'd like to say that's really quite successful in this combi van is those secondary layers. So I love how this combi, it still feels quite clean, but when you look closer, you can see all those beautiful details. So like if you have a look in the front here, you can see some of that edge wear where some of that paint's sort of chipping away. I love how it doesn't cover the entire combi uniformly. I love how it builds up around the tires and around the edges here. you can see it on the roof as the specular highlight sort of rolls over it. It's a really nice distribution, and I think it's quite successful, so really well done with that. A few other areas you may decide. You might want to add maybe some flecks of dirt, or maybe some back spray, maybe around sort of this area. You've got, like I said, you've got that lighter secondary detail, but maybe some darker, just a few brown specks or something like that. You might be able to chuck in around here. Definitely sort of under the bump area where things naturally accumulate and get a bit dirtier. And again, it only has to be subtle, very, very subtle. You don't need anything crazy. You could put a few flecks around here as well. I think that would work quite nicely. Your roof is quite successful. I think keep going, keep working towards what you're trying to achieve, because I think that's quite successful. You could perhaps add a few more details onto your glass as well. Depending on how dirty, some ideas, you could, add some windscreen wiper marks, maybe a few extra flecks, something that just captures the light. You do have a little bit on here, and that's quite successful as well. And I can also see that this could potentially still be a work in progress as well, the materials around the frames. So I won't comment on that until I know that that's finished. And the tires as well, I assume that you're still working with the tires, so I won't comment on that until that's finished, but just, some dirt and some wear lines where it would naturally build up in the real world. But other than that, absolutely fantastic work. When you go to present this, perhaps pick a nice environment, a HDRI that you could use in the background. I know the grey really works when you're presenting, and just like the work in progresses, but for your final portfolio render, a nice background would probably do it some justice. Maybe something that ties in with the theme, and you can present it on a grey background as well. There's no rules that say you just have to have the one, but just experiment with that as well. Yeah, absolutely fantastic work. I'm so excited to be seeing this, and look forward to the final product. So next one I want to jump down to was the Neo Racing. I think that's what it was called. 1 minute. Let's have a look. Where are we? I'm going blind. Here. Is that it? No. 1 minute. Here we go. All right, so the Neoclassic Racing combi. Now, the artist for this particular combi, here it is. He actually reached out to me and asked for this review. So to anyone who actually wants their work reviewed, please feel free to contact me. Otherwise, I'll just pick at random. So this was really, really cool. I'm going to just scroll down to the bottom, and I'll take you through his journey of how he sort of started this. Great breakdown and entry for this one. So really well done. I love how you designed a concept art. You added reference to your submission as well. That really does go a long way to help us understand what it is you're trying to achieve. And for my students, I always get them to do something like this. And this was perfect. The fact that you overlaid a bit of a drawing on top of the combi van was exactly what I asked for of my students when they textured this one. So fantastic work. Your reference images were also great. It really gives me a sense of mood and color and what sort of look you're trying to achieve. So when you've got reference next to you, it makes it so much easier to review, because you can put them side by side and you can go, all right, does this look and feel like this? Has it got enough dirt? Does it, things like that. So fantastic work. Now, what I love is that he did come in and change all the logos. So we did say that for copyright purposes, we wanted to make sure that nothing was copyrighted. So we came in and changed all the logos. That's exactly what I would do in production. I sort of just get a logo and just change the words up a little bit. Really common practice, so it looks great. So scroll up a little bit. And so the way that this artist started was that he sort of looked up references, and for each particular, he started to build up the materials of each particular component. So as you can see here, I loved how he had reference side by side. So his carbon filter, he had that side by side to a real life reference. Yeah, so this sort of just takes me through the journey of what he created. So I'm going to just pop it up to this section here now. And I would just like to go through and review some of this. Oops. All right. So overall, the logos and the design is really, really cool. I should say the composition, so the mixture of big logos and smaller logos, and the colors, they work really nicely together. So really good composition. You have the black and the orange, and just a few little hints of color. So I wouldn't ask you to change any of the logos. I think they're really successful. Something that did jump out to me for this particular piece was, even though the design was absolutely fantastic, it does appear a bit clean to me. Now, this has been marked as a finished piece. So now that these base materials are developed, so I can see that, you know, the paint is actually looking and feeling like a base paint. It's really shiny. You have the tire and the rubbers and the metal and things like that. Now I would really start to build up some of those secondary layers. So as a texture artist, we not only have to create base materials, we do have to really think about those secondary materials as well. We have to tell a story of our piece. So an audience member, if they just look at something, they should be able to tell how old an object is, what it's used for, and things like that. And it's, you know, it's things like dirt, wear and tear, rust, water droplets, anything really that adds to the story of that piece. And it's also about thinking about the location of those secondary details as well. So not just sort of applying it to the whole van or the whole piece, but being very thoughtful, because all details are very thoughtfully placed. Like I always like to use my phone as an example. You know, you have smudges and scratches and dents from your night out in town and stuff like that. My phone's really quite gross. So with this combi van, I understand that you are trying to achieve a very clean look, and that was mentioned in the portfolio. However, even clean objects still have a level of wear and tear. They're never 100% clean, even when they're freshly manufactured. So something that stands out to me is especially this specular highlight coming along the combi van. Now, it's perfectly clean and there's absolutely no breakup. So a very simple way to add some secondary details on clean objects is just to add some variation to the roughness map. You don't necessarily have to plug that variation into the color map if you don't want to. If it's something like dirt, you might, you know, add a little bit of contribution. But if you were to just pop some, you know, some large scale sort of fractal patterns, so sort of like that big in size, right? Like you'd kind of go lighter, darker, lighter. You could then, when that specular highlight brushes over the combi van, you will get a bit of breakup and a little bit of shift in that highlight. So I do recommend something like that. Now, if I have a look at the reference images, just to, again, have a look. So if we have a look, let's say this one, for example, I know that, you know, these are really carefully looked after and they're really clean, but even this one here, you can see some very small specks of dirt down the bottom and up the side, and I reckon there'd be a little bit more up here as well. So as well as like an overall specular roughness addition to the secondary layers, I would go ahead and just add a little bit of dirt, a little bit of wear and tear around these bottom corners as well. Pump that into your roughness as well as your color. So dirt will be rougher, it won't be as shiny. So it will diffuse that specular highlight over that area. And it'll also add some darkness around there. And I can't zoom in, but you can see in this one here, you also have a bit of dirt around the corners and around the bottoms. I think that will really assist in telling the story. Especially, I think on the tires would probably be quite successful as well. So any sort of dirt, chuck it on, you know, the wear lines where the tire naturally meets the ground. You can add a few flecks of dirt, maybe a few dots here and there, like just to show you a bit of wear and tear. In terms of the tires, now the tires do feel, to me, if I look left to right, the racing tires do look a lot shinier, in my opinion. There's not really much of a tread, and specular highlight is really quite glossy and quite tight. There's definitely a bit of secondary information around there as well, so you can see that the specular highlight's not a perfect circle. It's diffusing out. It's got a few scratches, a few smudges and things like that. So I would actually tighten up the specular highlights on the wheels, make it a little bit shinier, and you could probably lower any bump or any height information you have on there as well, because these appear to be quite flat. Yeah, I think that would really assist in that look. Now, in terms of tech checks, so again, similar to the previous entry, just double check the values of, you know, the black mirrors and things like that. Just double check the base colors not going below between that 0.03 value. They do look a little bit dark, especially in such a bright environment, but just double check that and just lift that up to assist in that realism just that little bit more. And that goes for the tires as well. All right. And the last one I had on this was just the glass. So something seems to be a little bit off in the render. I'd encourage you to just go back. This window almost looks like it's completely transmissive, whereas this one looks like it's got a tint or something on it. And I'm not sure whether it's your render settings or whether it's what it is, but it sort of happens on, like here, it looks completely see-through here and not there. And then when it flips around to the other side, you can see it's doing the same thing here. So just double check the shader values in iRay, make sure the samples are high enough, and yeah, something weird is not going on there. So just double check that for me. And yeah, you could also think about maybe adding a few smudges and a few bits and pieces on the glass as well, just to break up again that specular highlight on it. Other than that, really well done. If you can make these changes, I think that will really push it just a little bit further. Fantastic work though, well done. So the next one I'm going to be reviewing today. One second. Sorry, 1 second. All right, I have a visitor. I'm going to have to pause this here for today. Sorry, guys. I will be back in 1 minute. All right, I'm back, guys. Sorry about that. We apparently scheduled some maintenance for my home, so I've held them off for another 10 minutes. All right, so next we are reviewing everyone's favorite mystery machine. I loved this entry. It was just a real hit of nostalgia, so well done. All right, so the mystery machine. Now, again, fantastic concepts. We all really loved it. And I think it really did justice to the original show. It's got a lot of character, a lot of color, really, really fun. Yeah, loved it. Well done. So I'll just sort of be going through a couple little bits and pieces, which I just think will help push it just that little bit further. And this one was this was marked as finished. So I'll sort of add a few different areas where maybe we can push it a little bit further and get it from something that's already really cool to something just that little bit better. All right, so a couple little things which stood out to me on the mystery machine. First of all, just for presentation, check out the scale of your HDRI. I think it'd be really cool if you could just reduce the scale of the HDRI a bit. It won't change the lighting or anything in your scene, but it will just help to bring that sense of scale back to your combi. Right now in the presentation, it does feel quite small. It feels more like a toy combi van. And so if you did drop that scale for your final render for presentation, I think that will really assist in the overall look. So that was just one point that stood out to me. Next was just a few roughness values. So along here on the glass, to me, it feels quite rough. And the specular highlight is it's sort of diffused quite broadly over the top of the glass. Whenever I texture a glass material, I always make sure the roughness is below about 0.04, even lower. Sometimes I'll go 0.025 around that mark. Never zero, never completely shiny, but something like the value that you have on here on the metal, I think that would be a really good roughness value for this part here. So I think just reduce that specular highlight, reduce the roughness just that little bit more. On the actual paint body itself, yeah, I think the paint's quite successful. I don't think you need to change the roughness for the paint, but I think just if you could reduce the glass just that little bit, it would really help it. Really help it along. Now on the body, something I wanted to mention. So I read through the entrance, and you mentioned that you didn't want to add any more secondary details purely because it was a quite clean combi van and you didn't want it to appear too dirty. And that's all good. That's all good and fair, and I completely understand that. I guess what I would suggest to push this just a little bit further, there is quite a consistent dirt overlay over the combi van. You can see, I think you may have had a render in here of that. Let's have a look. Yeah. So you do have sort of like a very soft variation. You have some dirt marks over here, and I think that's quite successful. What you could perhaps do is think about knocking out some of those secondary layers in some areas. So perhaps in areas where it would be a bit cleaner, so maybe where he's wiped it down, perhaps around here you could clean it up a bit and then make it a little bit more heavy along the bottom and along the front and things like that. So just adding that large scale distribution between small and between heavy and light will really assist in the look of this combi van. So if you see how that dirt on the side of the doors and things like that, I think that's not assisting the clean look. If you cleaned all that up, and yeah, just maybe added some few flecks, maybe around the back of the tire, maybe it's kicked up some dirt along here, especially on the bottom of the metal bumper as well. You could clean up again some of the wear and tear on the tires. I think it's a little bit too contrasty. Just focus it in areas where it touches the ground. So around here, and you probably wouldn't see it in the shadows. But if you clean that up a little bit, clean that, I think it will still look like a really clean combi van, but just having those really thought out areas of secondary layers, it won't make it look less clean. It won't make it look dirty. It will just add a character to your piece. So that's just one suggestion for those secondary layers. Again, just double check, tech check your tires, that they're not too dark. You might have to just lift them up in value just a little bit. What else? Absolutely loved this, the little registration plate. Great work. It added so much character. And the lights. These lights are really successful. I love the color. And yeah, they've got a nice patterning on them as well. So they do appear like that tinted glass. So fantastic. The metal is very successful as well. So it looks like you do have a couple secondary layers on it, but it's still quite clean. I wouldn't change that too much. I think this is really great. So keep all of that. Perhaps on the roof of your combi van, you may be able to, just another idea, maybe some rain droplets or some little stains that just breaks up the highlight with a little bit more character. That's something that you could consider doing. Other than that, yep, the lights are fantastic. This metal around here is fantastic. Your decals are great. I think that's enough feedback for this round. So yeah, well done. So that's gone through 3 this morning. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to just hop on quite randomly throughout the next couple weeks, and I'll be reviewing people's work in progress combi vans. So if you would like a bit of feedback, please just send me a message either on our Discord channel, through Discord's probably the best way to do that actually, and I'll pop it in for a review. Thanks guys, thanks for listening, and yeah, join you next time. Bye.